So this Reddit post is about a guy who went on a date. However, after the date, she said she didn't have any romantic feelings for him. So we're going to read through his post and see where he possibly went wrong. Title reads, really clicked with a great girl who went out on a date but she didn't feel the same way. Typing this out, I think I know what I need to do to let go, but I just needed to get this out there. So I, a 26-year-old male, matched with this girl on Hinge and we really hit it off. Well, so he thought. We had the same sense of humour, interest, and we were just on the same wavelength, which is pretty rare for me to find. So in some ways he's already putting this girl on a pedestal, because I'm guessing he's been on dates before or spoken to girls before, and hasn't shared the same interest or hobbies as she has. So it's probably got him very excited, got him very anxious about making sure this one goes right, because he probably views this girl as a bit of a unicorn, which already puts a lot of pressure on her, because she's going to feel that sense that this guy really likes her and she doesn't want to upset him. He continues saying, having a partner who has similar interests is a huge plus for me. We talked on the app and then over text for 2 weeks before we decided to go on our first date. Now, I'm not the king of securing first dates easily. I'm just like any average guy. You win some and you lose some. But I went down this process where the first message I'd send to a girl is asking her to go out for a date, because I'd look at her profile, I'd think she's pretty, which is one big tick. I look through her profile and see maybe some similar interests, and I just take the plunge and say, do you want to go for a drink and meet up and get to know each other? Now, obviously, there'll be a large selection of girls who either won't reply or say no or want to talk to me further. But there'll be that select few who look at my profile and see an instant attraction and they say yes, they say why not? I do strongly believe that for a successful dating experience or something that goes longer term, sometimes you just know straight away if you're going to click or if there's that attraction there, and you want to be dating a girl who has a high genuine attraction for you. So you could go about it this way, or you should always maybe go back and forth with a couple of texts, but within 1 or 2 days you're going to want to set up a date and get to know each other in person. This guy, however, was texting for over 2 weeks, and if you're texting for over 2 weeks, you give off this vibe that you're not too confident and that you're umming and ahhing about asking her out. She knows you want to ask her out. She knows that you fancy her because you swiped on her on a dating app and you're messaging her a lot. So she knows that you want to meet up with her, but you lack that confidence to ask her out. And if you're talking for 2 weeks, what are you going to say when you meet her for the first time? You've already spoken about everything. So this is one of the first mistakes he's made. Like, why you message her for 2 weeks? If you have all these hobbies and interests that you share, talk about this in person. Set up a date so you can talk about it more. But yeah, let's carry on here. At this point, I was definitely already falling for her. Oh god, there's no saving this guy. And we already had 2 separate shared notes of shows and movies to watch together and date ideas. This guy's doing everything against the book. You can see that he probably doesn't have a lot of experience with women, or have a lot of experience of women who matches his interests, because you can't be falling in love with a girl that you haven't even met in person yet. You shouldn't be falling in love with a girl after at least a couple of months, but this guy's just, he's gone straight to putting this girl on a pedestal, which is not going to end too well for him. And also already planning future dates. You haven't even been on the first date yet. Like, he's already like messaging about movie night ideas, what they're going to watch while they're snugging under the covers. You haven't even met this girl in person, so this guy is jumping the gun way too much. A little more about me. I've always considered myself to be a hopeless romantic, no shit, and recognise I was falling hard and getting ahead of myself. At least he's self-aware, so there is that part. I mentioned that I tend to do this when dating to her, and she says she does the same thing. Yeah, probably because she's a girl and men and women are different, so you shouldn't be acting like a woman. And that she's really liked what she's been going on for so far between us, which made me feel a lot better about things. This guy's giving a lot of femininity vibes. Yeah, she might be saying it's completely fine how he's acting, but internally she's getting the ick that women like to say. So yeah, let's go on to the next paragraph and see more of the car crash ahead. So he says, flash forward to last Friday, I decided to take her to a really fancy vegetarian spot in the city. I'm not vegetarian, but she is. I wanted to show her that I didn't mind. I don't like food dates as a first date idea because it is very formal. And let's say you aren't a good match, you might already know you're not a good match before the first starter comes out, and then you're stuck with her throughout, the main course and the dessert. So you want a date where it's something cheap, inexpensive, and something where if the vibe's not right, you can leave early. But with a dinner date, you're committed to at least a 2 to 3 hour period. So that's not a good idea. And say it's a fancy restaurant, you shouldn't be spending more than about £20 on a first date. I'm talking about maybe a coffee or two and maybe 2 cocktails. Like, you should not be going out your way to pay for an expensive date because you don't even know this girl yet. You don't owe her anything. And even though we live in a feminist society, you are still expected as the guy to pay for the date. So you're spending a lot of money on a girl who you don't even know yet. So this is a bad idea. And going to a vegetarian restaurant when you're not vegetarian yourself, like, you should be going on a date with something that you enjoy doing. Like, I enjoy doing crazy golf. I'm quite competitive. I like physical activity, so I might take a girl on a crazy golf day. I do enjoy a drink, so I'll go to a bar. I like walking. I like nature, so I might go on a walking day. You should do stuff that you want to do, and you're bringing her along for it. Don't change what you like to do just because of what she wants to do, especially in the first few dates. That's going to make her not trust your masculine strength, and she's just going to also think that you're a pleaser, and you'll just change your personality to fit hers, which will not make her feel safe and comfortable. He says, looking back, it might not have been a bit overboard for a first date. Again, he's very self-aware, which I appreciate, but I'm sure even before the first date, he realised that maybe this wasn't a good idea, but he still went ahead with it anyway, which I just don't understand why he has that viewpoint. We met and hugged, and she was clearly a bit shy in person, but after chatting and some jokes, she opened up a lot more. So it sounds like this guy's not, completely useless. I think he probably has a decent personality and has decent looks. It's important to be able to make a girl, laugh and make her feel comfortable, especially if the date goes on for a couple of hours. So he at least has some game, and he has some good self-review of the actions he's doing, but he's still making these mistakes. He says the actual date itself went great. We talked for 3 hours, enjoyed some great food, and even when paused, we just looked at each other and smiled at each other. So yeah, 3 hour date, some people might say that's too long. I think it is important for a date where you want her to want more. So sometimes it's good to cut off a date when it's going really well. I usually cut off a date after the second drink, usually because I'm driving, so I need to be careful. But also that's usually when she's at a point of the highest attraction. So it's good to leave the date when you're on a high, because usually after the high it's only going to go downhill from here. But also, yeah, you want her to want more. You want her to think that, oh, does this guy actually like me? Like, why is he ending the date early? Has he got somewhere else to be? Has he got someone else in his life? And, girls like you more if they don't know your true feelings. So that can only increase the attraction. Like, I'm sure this guy after 3 hours wanted a date to last a further 3 hours, but I'm sure she was the one after 3 hours who said, it's probably time to go home now. And yeah, he would have stayed on that date for as long as possible. The actual date itself went great. Oh, apologies, I already read that. We discussed possibly going out again that Sunday, and I was really excited. I bet you are. And she was very aware of how excited you were as well. You were probably jumping around like a bunny on steroids. But yeah, why are you discussing about future dates while on the first date? You should be focusing on the present and the current date, and you should only be talking about a next date if she brings it up. Now, he doesn't confirm who brought up the second date, but let's be honest, we know he definitely brought it up. So yeah, he's bringing up a second date while internally she's thinking, I don't want to see this guy again. And it just shows that you've got no other plans. It shows that you're way too into her than she's into you. And ideally you want to be waiting a couple of days after the first date before reaching out to her for a second date. Finish the first date, mate, before organising a second one. After we left, I waited for her Uber to come. That's very gentlemanly of you. That's a good idea. And I hugged her goodbye. You should have kissed her. And we said we text each other when we get home safe. Now, I learned the kissing test on the first date from Coach Corey Wayne on YouTube, and he says you should always go in for the first kiss on a first date, even if you think it's not going too well, because you can see firsthand if the girl's into you or not. If she's into you, she'll kiss you back. If she's not into you, you'll get the cheek or a hug. I used this method when I was on a date with a girl, and I think it went well, but I wasn't too sure. But I said to myself, I'm going to go in for the kiss no matter what. I went in for the kiss, she kissed me back, and we ended up going on like a long-term dating experience, about 3 months. And while she was a massive walking red flag, the kiss test did work, because at the time I was interested in her, even if she was a massive walking red flag. But I also did the kiss test, and the girl gave me the cheek. So it was very clear that she either had a lot of rules or she wasn't interested in me. So after that, I didn't message her again. We went our separate ways, and I didn't waste any more time on her. This guy, however, I don't think he even tried to go for the kiss. He was too much of a nice guy. He didn't want to be too forward, and he just gave her a hug like a friend. And that's what they are. They're just friends who share the same hobbies, but one has a very small penis and the other has a vagina. So yeah, that's how this date ended. Closing 2 paragraphs here, he says, after I text her that I had an amazing time and asked her if I'm lucky enough to go on a second date with her, and she said that she had a really good time and that she genuinely really liked me as a person, but that she just didn't feel a romantic connection, and that she's bad at saying these things in the moment, and she apologised. Firstly, why after the date are you saying to her you had an amazing time? She knows you had an amazing time. It was written all over your face and in the way you were acting. She knew that. You didn't need to tell her. You should be waiting, a couple of days after the first date before contacting her again, and then saying, if I'm lucky enough to go on a second date, will you go out with me? That just gives such a aura of desperation. Like, why are you making out it's such an honour that you will go on a second date with me? You should view yourself as the prize, and you shouldn't be going into this treating her like a princess, saying, oh, your majesty, thank you so much for considering going out a date with me. I know I'm just a peasant, but thank you, your ladyship, for letting me go on another date. That's kind of what it sounds like, and it's pretty yucky from this guy's point of view. He says, it was really heartbreaking to hear, but I understood and wished her all the best. I was devastated and cried it out, which kind of shows how invested I was in this when I wasn't a long-term relationship or anything like that. Right, so he's really heartbroken, and his reply to her, from the sounds of it, was very good. He didn't say how heartbroken he was or how he was crying all night. Thankfully he didn't tell her that, and he from the looks of it, he kept it quite cool, so top marks for that. But to be devastated and crying about just one date, it's yeah, I think he's got massive attachment issues, and it's very clear he doesn't have a lot of experience with women. There really is plenty of fish in the sea. This is just one girl who you've been talking to for 2 weeks. You should not be crying and be devastated about this situation at all. Final paragraph reads, I've been reflecting a lot on everything, and I even started going back to counselling to talk about this and work on my attachment style. So he realises he does have an attachment style. Counselling for a young guy, yeah, you do what works for you, but I just imagine a lot of counsellors giving terrible advice, and they probably are women who haven't lived in a man's shoes, just like I don't think many men should give women advice. You know, you haven't walked in their steps, so hey, maybe he has a male counsellor who's very helpful. But yeah, obviously this guy has a lot to work on. Maybe hit the gym, start talking to more women, and going abroad to broaden your experiences instead of going to a counsellor. But hey, if it's free, you go for it. I've had the thought of reaching back out to her and seeing if we could be friends, but I know I wouldn't be able to just be friends with her, and I'd be hoping for something more, which wouldn't be fair to her or me. Yeah, you want more than just friendship, so don't put yourself in the friend zone, because yeah, it's not fair on her. You'll be lingering around her like a male orbiter, trying to get in her pants when she just wants to be your friend. But yeah, don't want to be, as a guy, around a girl you have a romantic connection with, or you want a romantic connection with, and put yourself in the friend zone. That's just going to give you major blue balls, and you will be unhappy and you'll be resentful to her. The last thing you want to see is her with a guy that she's in a romantic relationship with, and you're there seething through the mouth wishing that you were that guy. So yeah, don't be that guy. Find a girl who's crazy about you and put your time and effort into her over some girl who basically dumped you after a first date. He says, I think I was in love with the idea of falling in love with this girl. She was really perfect, and I'm really sad she won't be part of my life. Now that's how that guy ends the post, but how do you know she was perfect? You were speaking to her for 2 weeks, you went on one date. Firstly, no girl is perfect, and you do not know this girl's true values or how she really is, because she was putting her best foot forward just like you were in the first date. So she could have been an awful human being who causes you a lot of pain in your life, but you won't know that after one date. You probably won't know that until she passes you the divorce papers in 10 years time. So yeah, don't get all hooked up over this girl that you barely know, and you shouldn't get overly invested in any girl, to be honest. But yeah, this guy has a lot to work on, and he just needs more experience. Date more women, and you'll quickly realise that this girl is a dime a dozen, and you're going to find other girls who you have a connection with and who shares some of your same hobbies. So yeah, hope this guy gets help from his counsellor, and he turns it around. Anyway guys, that's all. Cheers, bye.